Hey, this is Janet from Paper and Spark, and today I wanted to try something different. I know that there's a lot of questions out there from Etsy shop owners and makers and creative business owners about what bookkeeping system makes the most sense for you to use. A lot of people use QuickBooks. I know that QuickBooks is especially popular now that Etsy has partnered with QuickBooks Self-Employed. A lot of people like GoDaddy, the formerly known Outright Bookkeeping, and then of course I'm biased because I created a bookkeeping solution with my business Paper and Spark that's spreadsheet based. So I thought that I would just compare these three methods, kind of show you me doing the data dump for each one and then comparing across the board. And my purpose is really twofold. It's not so much that I want to prove that one of these methods is better than the others. It's more that I want to show you that no matter what system you choose, you've got to be in it. You've got to be doing the work. So even if you choose something like QuickBooks that is automated and will import transactions from Etsy, from your bank account, from PayPal automatically, it doesn't mean that those numbers are right, okay? Anytime that we're relying on robots to sort your transactions for you, mistakes can be made. And what you're going to see is that when I compare all three methods, when we initially get the numbers into each system, the total sales and total expenses for the month are drastically different. And that's because each method takes some fine-tuning. You cannot just rely on those numbers right off the bat. You've got to actually dig deeper and set up some rules and look at it each month and fix it, okay? Because they're wrong at first. There's no other better way to put it. You've got to take the time, no matter what system you choose, and put in the work and sort those numbers. So I hope after looking at these videos, you will be able to see which system makes the most sense for you, whether that be something a little more manual like a spreadsheet, or if you like the automation of QuickBooks or GoDaddy, but now you're aware that it's not just as simple as a click of a button. You've got to actually do some sorting and eyeball those transactions every month, because I do hear from a lot of people, no matter what system they use, it comes to be tax time, they're looking at their reports that their bookkeeping system's generated and they're like, wow, why did I make twice as many sales according to QuickBooks as I did according to my Etsy reports? This doesn't make any sense. So let's get aware of our responsibilities and what we need to do from the beginning to make our lives easier at tax time, all right? So I hope that you find this video interesting, and I think you're going to be surprised at what we see and how different each one is. Alright, so first let's take a look at what the Etsy seller spreadsheet from Paper and Spark looks like when you first open it up. So we're just comparing blank slates to blank slates, and there are, video instructions and PDF instructions for exactly how to use this spreadsheet, so I'm not going to walk you through how to use it, but let's just do a quick import of May's Etsy sales in here to see what sort of numbers we get for May. Alright, so I've downloaded my Etsy orders CSV. I'm importing it in with a simple copy paste, and now I've got my Etsy totals for the month of May. That's my direct checkout fees and my sales and shipping, and then also my sales taxes collected for my state. Again, totally lots of instructions on how to do all this if you purchase this spreadsheet. Etsy is not the only place that I sell. I also have my own site with WooCommerce. So I'm going to look up my WooCommerce sales for the month, and based on those reports, I know that This is what I made from Woo this month. What else do I have? I also do a little bit of invoicing on PayPal, and after checking my PayPal reports, I would need to manually enter in any amounts there. And finally, I received some affiliate income this month of $932. Actually, I had $4.90, let's not forget about that, plus $932. So I was able to quickly import in my Etsy sales, and then I manually enter in sales from other sources, and then I would need to manually enter in any other expenses here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that according to the instructions for the spreadsheet, which involves looking at the bill for my Etsy fees other than direct checkout, which automatically is generated. I would need to look at my PayPal report to get my total PayPal fees, and then I basically pull up my bank statement for the month and enter the expenses that go in these categories, and I would enter them on the applicable tab, and that information will automatically travel here. So for the rest of this video, you're going to see me using an updated spreadsheet for the month of May to compare over to GoDaddy and QuickBooks. So this is what it looks like for the month of May after I've gotten everything entered into it. This is my actual spreadsheet. So if I'm being fair in comparing and contrasting these methods fully, because I'm sure you'll see me rag on QuickBooks and GoDaddy a bit, the spreadsheets are going to require the most manual entry. You can easily copy and paste in your Etsy sales and your Etsy fees. If you're using one of the other seller spreadsheets, you can also import in PayPal, Amazon, Shopify, Square, etc. But as far as the majority of your business's expenses, you're manually entering that into the system. And that, can be time consuming depending on how many you have. The benefit of that is that you have eyeballs on it. So you are categorizing the expenses in the correct place, and you are comparing it to your bank statement or your PayPal statement as you go, so you know that those transactions are being entered, and not only are they being entered, but they're going to the right place. You're not missing them, they're not going to be duplicated, you're not going to accidentally enter a sale twice or a transfer as a sale or anything like that. And I think for me that's preferable. I like the hands-on experience of bookkeeping because I think it prevents a lot of the errors that we're going to see QuickBooks and GoDaddy making. But it is an important note to make if we're contrasting and comparing spreadsheets to these other methods. So now that I've shown you a little bit of how the spreadsheet works, let's take a look at this compared to the numbers that GoDaddy and QuickBooks are telling us. So here's what it looks like when I log into QuickBooks Self-Employed, and I'm going to try and compare May across the board between these different systems. Now, one of the first things that I notice with QuickBooks Self-Employed, and I'm not sure if all QuickBooks are like this, but you can see me doing this. It's making me go through every single transaction just about and designate whether it was business or personal. So this can be pretty time consuming, unfortunately. I'm not really sure why it doesn't just assume that everything is business, because I think that would be a pretty safe assumption for most people. And I'm also not sure if maybe there's a fast way to just do this for like all transactions, like check off all of them and designate everything as business so that I don't have to go one by one. But if there is, I haven't figured out how to do that. So just something to note about using QuickBooks. Okay, so here's what it looks like in GoDaddy Bookkeeping, and I'm going to set up some accounts with my GoDaddy and just let it import in. I can also link my Etsy account pretty simply and quickly. And finally, I'm going to see if I can add my bank account. Okay, so I just got everything imported into GoDaddy, the exact same accounts for my business, and I'm just gonna see how May looks comparing GoDaddy to QuickBooks. And it looks like I've got $7,800 of income in May and $9,000 of expenses for May in GoDaddy. So GoDaddy's telling me I have a $1,508 loss. Let's see what QuickBooks says for May. So May for QuickBooks, just right off the bat, without classifying or checking over anything, it's telling me I have $5,000 of sales and $500 of expenses for a positive profit of $4,599. So we can see that just from the beginning, from a real quick view, these two systems are telling me drastically different things. Okay, so let's compare all of that to my updated Paper and Spark personal spreadsheet for this business, and you'll see that according to my personal bookkeeping records, I've got $5,000 in total revenue, so that's not too far off from what from what QuickBooks is saying for May. It's pretty far off from what GoDaddy's saying, and according to my records, I've got just $2,300 in expenses, which is way off from what GoDaddy's saying and way off from what QuickBooks is saying. So let's dig into this a little bit deeper and see why these three different methods are so different, what we can rely on, and how we need to make any of these three a reliable method. This spreadsheet is my own creation, the spreadsheet that I have for sale at paperandspark.com, and I am entering the data in here, so obviously I trust what I've got in my spreadsheet as being correct, if not at least the most accurate out of the three. But I'm going to see if I can play with the other two to get them to match what my spreadsheet says. Now, to be totally honest with you, I started playing with QuickBooks back in March, and I set up a lot of rules. I did a lot of cleanup work back then because it was miscategorizing a lot of my transactions. So that is why my revenue for May ties pretty closely to my own records, I think, because I've already been playing with that. I wouldn't expect that to be the same case for you right off the bat. Starting out, you might have to set up some rules, particularly regarding transfers between accounts. A lot of times that gets double counted as a sale if you don't tell QuickBooks right away to make those transfers. Okay, so for some reason I figured out that in QuickBooks my bank account is not showing up. Not sure why, and I think that some of them were hiding under pending transactions for May. So somehow I found them, these hiding bank transactions, and now I need to go through and designate them all as business, not personal. So I'm doing that now, just for the month of May, and I'm hoping that that will update my numbers, particularly my expenses for the month of May, to match in QuickBooks a little more what I would expect to see. Okay, so now that I've gotten my bank account to show up, my sales have increased to 8,000 and my expenses have increased to 8,000. So this is a little bit weird because this also does not match what I know actually happened in May, but it looks like it's getting a little bit closer to what GoDaddy is trying to tell me. So I'm going to troubleshoot some more and see if I can figure out why these numbers are so crazy. Okay, so here's something. I'm filtering for just my expenses and it looks like my deposits into my bank account from Etsy are being classified, I don't know, as positive expenses. I'm not sure what it's doing, but those are transfers from Etsy, okay? QuickBooks is already considering the sale at the time of sale from Etsy to be my Etsy sale. So when Etsy actually deposits that money into my account, it should just be considered a transfer. I don't need to double count it as anything else. Okay, so reclassifying that has now increased my expenses, which makes sense because they were considering those transfers a positive expense for some reason. Okay, so I think I figured out what part of the problem is. I have this transfer that I paid myself. I paid myself. That I need to set up a rule of it's not an expense, it's me paying myself. So I'm going to change that to a transfer and see how that affects things. Okay, so fixing that transfer really reduced my business expenses, but I'm still off by about $800, and I'm not sure why. Okay, so something else that I've noticed that's weird is at the end of the month, it's recording these, basically my Etsy bill that I paid on June 1st, not May 31st. And this is the actual bill that I did pay in May, on the 1st of May for April. This is what I have on my spreadsheet is this $45.79 plus this $3. That's what I have as my bill for the month, which is what I actually paid. So I suspect that, you know, these fees are really going to hit in June, and that's one reason why this is off. Plus this is going as a transfer, so I don't even know. I'm gonna pretty much ignore these two guys, but that still doesn't explain why I'm off by so much. So I feel like maybe I'll figure out the expense problem if I take a look at just the income. Maybe something's hiding in here that really should be classified as an expense. So again, my records show that I've got about $5,100 of sales, while QuickBooks is showing that I've got 8,000. So let's troubleshoot and see if I can figure out how to get this to match. All right, so by sorting by amount, I can tell that right off the bat, I have got some transfers that are being counted as income. So see, PayPal is already recording the sales that hit PayPal directly, and then when I transfer them to my bank account, they're getting counted as sales again. So I need to set up anything coming from PayPal as a transfer and not as income. Okay guys, I'm pretty much going to give up on QuickBooks. I'm not sure what happened. I tried to designate that one PayPal transfer to my bank account as a transfer and not a sale, and it's showing that I have income still on this dashboard view on home, but when I actually click on it to try to see my income for May, it says nothing, okay? I go here and then I'm like, yeah, show me May. My expenses are still here. I got no income though, and no income. It's all going to transfers. And when I try and change them, oh God, when I try and change these PayPal sales, back to income, nothing happens. They just stay here. Doesn't matter how I do it. They just really want to be transfers now. They're not budging. So I don't know what to do. I'm stuck here with some really inaccurate information. But the weird thing is just it seems like they know it here, but they don't want to show it to me anymore. So maybe it's some sort of bug. Who knows? Okay, so you know what I did? I actually logged out of QuickBooks and then I logged back in, and now guess what? This is what's showing up for May. My expenses changed. They're a little closer to what I've got on my spreadsheet, and my income showing up again, so that's great. Now let me go back to trying to figure out how I can get this to match my spreadsheet. So now things are looking a little normal again. This is how it should work. I should be able to just easily make these transfers from PayPal to my bank account a transfer. So I'm pretty sure that that is all that I need to do, and everything else should be good. So now I'm pretty close to the sales total that I have on the spreadsheet. I'm off by $17, and I'm just probably gonna let that slide. Okay, so after a lot of troubleshooting and whatnot, I'm pretty close to what my own records say for May. So that is how to use QuickBooks Self-Employed that integrates with Etsy. Let's take a look at how this all looks in GoDaddy now. Alright, so with GoDaddy, I'm starting totally from scratch. I haven't been messing around in it like I had with QuickBooks, so I anticipate that it's going to be a little more time consuming for me to get set up right. So for the month of May, it's showing me as having $9,000 in expenses, which is more than 3 times what I've got recorded on my spreadsheet. So we've got some major duplicated stuff going on, I'm going to guess, and maybe some transfers being classified as expenses. I don't know. Let's dig. Alright, so here's that biggie again. Those transfers where I pay myself are being considered expenses. So I'm going to classify that as an owner's draw, and that should make a big fix. Right?
Right.
Why did this not update itself? Alright, so good. That took me from 9,000 down to 1,800. So now I am about $500 short on expenses. So that's good to know. We want to check out what's showing up under the non-business expense tabs. We've got all our transfers. So this is Etsy and Stripe paying me. Some of these are transfers that don't belong though. Like this is me paying my web designer. So that's actually an expense. So I need to fix that. Okay, this is not a transfer, this is an expense. So I've got a lot of expenses in here that are hiding as non-business transfers incorrectly that I need to fix. Let's check out what's happening over here under the uncategorized expenses tab. Now this is interesting because these two guys are showing up in June on GoDaddy, and they were showing up in May and throwing everything off on my QuickBooks in May, but they're showing up correctly as being in June here. I'm not really worrying in this analysis about whether the expenses are going into the correct category. I'm more just worried if they're showing up as expenses at all. So I'm not going to waste any time classifying these guys because they are indeed expenses, so they're at least in the correct major category. So after fixing the non-business expenses that should be showing up as expenses, let's see how close I am. Okay, so now I am about $15 over what my records show. And I'm just going to take that as a win right now, y'all. This is close enough. So that wasn't too bad. I just had to pretty much check out this non-business tab and make sure those things were getting categorized correctly. Now let's check out the income. Okay, so the good news is that GoDaddy knows that my PayPal transfers are transfers. They're not lumping them into business income, so that's good. The bad news appears to be that they are dumping the deposits from Etsy as income instead of a transfer. Even though they're also counting the actual sales from Etsy. See, the sales are being counted and the deposit from Etsy was being counted. So we've got to clear that up because that means it's double counting the Etsy sales. Okay, I'm willing to bet this is a really unfun video to watch. So this is how close I am for May income now. I am about $800 over. And I think another problem I've got is that my transfers from Stripe are being listed as other income instead of as transfers in. So let's fix that for everybody and then refresh and see, okay, now I am pretty darn close, and I think that I'm the same as GoDaddy now. All right, so let's take a look at May. GoDaddy, it is pretty close. Income's the same. Expenses are a tiny bit different. Spreadsheet, we're pretty close to both of these as well. We're all within about 20 bucks of each other. So that is how you can use 3 different bookkeeping methods to get 3 completely different net profits for your business, and how no matter what method you pick, you can't just use it straight out of the box. You've got to put in time to investigate the numbers that it's reporting for you each month. You've got to make sure that things aren't missing. You've got to make sure that things are going to the correct place, the correct type of transaction, like business expense, income, or transfer. Even before you start worrying about whether it's categorized in the correct, deduction category, you've got to make sure that the numbers are just right. You can't use any of these methods straight out of the box. You've got to actually use your brain and look and drill down and make sure that these numbers are making sense, because as we've seen, they're not going to be correct right from the get-go. It takes work to set these things up properly. It takes a little bit of digging and some troubleshooting, and I hope that seeing how all 3 of these methods work helps you make a decision on what method is the best for you.